Basketball season, Samaria, Caitlin Clark had the sport by the throat. Iowa women's basketball was must-see TV, and if they were in...
Caitlin Clark, a name that has become synonymous with dominance in women's basketball, has turned the sport into a spectacle, with her mere presence electrifying arenas across the country. During her time at Iowa, the team became must-watch TV, attracting thousands of fans and sparking a nationwide obsession with the game. After her graduation, the excitement she generated followed her to the WNBA, where her games continued to break viewership and attendance records. She has not only captivated fans, but has reshaped the landscape of women's sports, leading some to wonder, did Geno Auriemma, the legendary coach of UConn, make a mistake that might cost him more than he's willing to admit? For decades, Geno Auriemma and the UConn Huskies set the gold standard in women's college basketball. Under his leadership, UConn was synonymous with excellence, regularly filling their arenas with fans who traveled from all over to watch the team's iconic players, including Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Maya Moore, and Breanna Stewart. However, as the years have passed, cracks have begun to show in the UConn dynasty, with attendance at games dropping significantly. While Iowa, even without Clark on the roster, continues to draw 15,000 fans per game, more than double UConn's best numbers, the once untouchable UConn program now faces questions about its future. The issue isn't just about attendance, though. It's about the decision Geno made years ago, a decision that might go down as one of his biggest regrets, not recruiting Caitlin Clark. The player who was overlooked by Auriemma and UConn went on to become one of the most influential figures in women's basketball, leading Iowa to incredible heights and redefined what it means to be a star in the sport. Let's break it down. UConn's attendance troubles have been a growing concern for the past few years. Despite the program's rich history and storied success, crowds have steadily dwindled, with some matchups drawing fewer than 600 fans. This decline in attendance isn't an isolated incident. UConn's home games, which once boasted a near-cult following, now average between 4,000 and 6,000 fans, far from the sold-out arenas that the program used to enjoy. Just recently, UConn played in the Bahamas in front of a meager crowd of 567 people. Contrast that with Iowa's current attendance numbers, where they're consistently drawing more than 15,000 fans per game. Even without Clark on the floor, Iowa's commitment to excellence and fan engagement continues to shine. So why the drop-off for UConn? Some point to the program's recent struggles to maintain its dominance. With teams like South Carolina, Iowa, and LSU now capturing more of the spotlight, UConn's reign over women's college basketball has loosened. But there's another factor at play. Fans are no longer just looking for a winning team, they crave excitement, star power, and the kind of breathtaking performances that players like Clark deliver. Caitlin Clark's rise has transformed Iowa into a powerhouse, not just because of her talent, but because of the way she plays the game fearlessly, boldly, and with a style that has made her a must-see athlete. UConn's more traditional, disciplined approach doesn't seem to be enough to capture the imagination of fans anymore. But here's where things get even more interesting. Caitlin Clark was never even offered a scholarship to UConn. In fact, Geno Auriemma, the same coach who built an empire at UConn, didn't believe Clark fit his system. Some reports suggest that Geno doubted her high-risk, high-reward playing style. Her deep three-pointers and flashy passes would work with UConn's disciplined, team-oriented approach. Others argue that Auriemma simply underestimated Clark's ability to dominate at the college level. Whatever the reason, UConn passed on recruiting her, and Clark ultimately chose Iowa, a school not traditionally known for basketball dominance. It didn't take long for Clark to prove everyone wrong. At Iowa, she was nothing short of sensational, shattering records and leading the Hawkeyes to the Final Four by her junior year. More than just her stats, though, it was the way she played her deep, jaw-dropping threes, no-look passes, and fearless leadership that made Iowa games must-watch TV. Fans who had never cared about women's basketball tuned in just to see what Clark would do next. But perhaps the most defining moment of Clark's rise came during the 2024 NCAA Final Four, when Iowa faced off against UConn in what many saw as a symbolic passing of the torch. UConn had been the gold standard in women's basketball for years, but after Clark and Iowa's dominant performance, there was no doubt that it was her time. Clark not only led Iowa to victory, but she also proved that she was the best player on the court. The questions immediately began to swirl. What if Geno had recruited her? What if Caitlin Clark had been the face of UConn basketball at a time when the program desperately needed a spark? For Geno, the loss of Clark isn't just a missed opportunity, it's a decision that changed the narrative of women's basketball. Clark's meteoric rise has forever shifted the power dynamics in the sport. She has become more than just a basketball player, she's a cultural icon, and her ability to elevate any program she's on has reshaped women's basketball as a whole. But for UConn, the story is more complicated. In hindsight, it's clear that missing out on Clark was a decision that has left the program struggling to regain its former glory. Yet, this story doesn't end with a missed opportunity. When Caitlin Clark declared for the WNBA, Geno had plenty to say, none of it particularly flattering. He publicly questioned her physicality and decision-making, suggesting that her deep threes and flashy shots wouldn't work against the tougher, more athletic competition in the WNBA. Geno wasn't alone in his skepticism. Many analysts and former players doubted Clark's ability to succeed at the next level. Diana Taurasi, one of Geno's most celebrated proteges, even expressed concerns that Clark might struggle in the league. Clark, however, stayed quiet. She didn't respond to the critics, instead letting her game speak for itself. And speak it did. Clark not only met expectations in her rookie year with the Indiana Fever, she shattered them. Averaging 9.2 points, 8.4 assists, and 5.7 rebounds per game, Clark was the runaway choice for Rookie of the Year. She became the first rookie in WNBA history to record multiple triple-doubles, cementing her status as one of the league's brightest stars. And then came the memes. Social media exploded with posts poking fun at Geno's earlier doubts about Clark, with captions like, "How's that WNBA physicality working out for you, Geno?" Fans relished in the irony, celebrating Clark's success in the WNBA after she had been so publicly dismissed by Auriemma. It wasn't just fans, analysts hailed her as a generational talent, comparing her to some of the greatest basketball players of all time. In the wake of Clark's success, Geno's attitude shifted dramatically. The same coach who had once doubted Clark was now publicly praising her. He called her a game changer and even claimed she was better than Paige Bueckers, his own star player at UConn. It was a clear shift, but why the change of heart? Timing is key. Geno's compliments came just as Clark was gaining national attention for her extraordinary rookie season in the WNBA. At this point, Clark wasn't just a basketball player, she was an icon. As the most marketable name in women's basketball, she had the power to change the narrative. And Geno, realizing that his earlier comments might alienate fans, shifted his tone to praise Clark's abilities. But there's another layer to this. Geno's involvement with the new 3-on-3 basketball league, Unrivaled. The league, co-founded by WNBA stars like Breanna Stewart and Napheesa Collier, is a new off-season alternative for professional players, and Geno is an investor. Sources suggest that Unrivaled made an aggressive push to recruit Clark, offering her a lucrative contract rumored to exceed $1 million. But when the roster reveal came, Clark's name was conspicuously absent. Her decision to decline sent shockwaves through the basketball world, leaving Geno visibly upset and the league facing an uphill battle to gain traction without her star power. So why did Clark turn down Unrivaled? The decision, according to insiders, was simple: rest. After a relentless senior season at Iowa and a record-breaking rookie year in the WNBA, Clark prioritized her health and recovery. Her rejection of Unrivaled wasn't personal, it was practical. But for Geno and the league, it was a blow. Caitlin Clark's journey is more than just about basketball. It's about resilience, vision, and knowing your worth. From being overlooked by Geno Auriemma to becoming the face of the WNBA, Clark has redefined what it means to be a star in women's basketball. For Geno, it's a reminder that even legends aren't immune to mistakes. And for UConn, it's a wake-up call. The game has changed, and the future of women's basketball will be defined by players like Caitlin Clark, not by those who underestimate them. As for Caitlin Clark, her journey is just beginning. Her influence will continue to shape the future of women's basketball for generations to come.